Good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Julie Hardiman, and I work for the Savannah-Chatham County Public School System as a parent mentor. And I'm here tonight to welcome you to our presentation. And it's going to be a very informative presentation, and we're going to actually have a format where we offer individuals an opportunity to ask us questions as you go along. The only thing I ask, if you have like real personal questions, please, is that better? There you go. Okay. Please, you can use my email and email me, and I'll put you into contact with the appropriate person. And this is being streamed live. So I'd like to introduce our host group, which is the Lowcountry Down Syndrome Society. And the president is John Borgardis.
Thank you, Julie. Again, we appreciate everybody being here. Thank you to Julie, kind of coordinate all this, and her specialty is doing interagency work. So this is a great success for all of our populations, and getting good information to everybody, and hopefully this will be very helpful and essential for everybody. Thank you for employability, and this is their great facility. So thank you to them and having us here, and a place for the kids to romp in the back, and so it's been great. So thank you for all being here. We have a buddy walk. We were hoping we'd have it in Forsyth Park this year, but due to inclement viruses, we are doing virtual again. So maybe next year, 5,000 of us can gather in Forsyth Park and have a good time. But again, we're doing virtual this year. But with that, we have a YouTube channel and we have a Facebook channel, which is the Lowcountry Down Syndrome Society. And we're streaming live in that now, and it archives. So if anybody wants to go back, we have all the contacts of all the speakers tonight, and all the information will be there at any time if you want to go and just start this video. All right. So thank you so much.
Thank you, John. You can hear me okay? All right, and next I'd like to recognize employability, because you cannot have interagency cooperation and coordination without having people work together. And that's one thing good about being in Chatham County. We're all very supportive of each other's groups and opportunities to help inform our parents of kids with disabilities and young adults in the future. So here is Brendan Friara, who is the CEO and president of Employability.
I'll be really quick. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out to the facility. If you aren't aware of who we are celebrating our 70th year. We were started in 1951 by a group of parents, actually. So we're a nonprofit that works with adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities on community integration, job training, and supported employment. And so this is, again, is our facility. I mean, more than happy to give anybody a tour afterwards. Be happy to talk about the services that we provide. This facility is going to undergo, under the next probably 2 or 3 years, a huge renovation. We're at the very beginning. This is probably the first time I'm mentioning it publicly, although I've mentioned it to a lot of people, but we're doing a capital campaign hoping to raise $6.5 million. We would like to gut the building and rebuild it to provide the best possible services that we can. So thank you guys for coming. And like I said, afterwards, if anybody wants to know anything about employability or would like to take a tour, please let me know.
Thank you, Brendan. And then continuing on with our community partnership, we're very happy to have Jesse Petrea here tonight. And I've known Jesse for a long time, and I know he's passionate about working with individuals and their families.
if you can, if everybody will look at that, there's information there about the budget this year. You know, a lot of times we get things done in the legislature and nobody really realizes what's going on because you don't hear about it, right? You may not know what's going on. And so I've got a document that describes some of the many bills that we've passed, statutory bills that our leadership has passed over the last 5 years or so that have been enormous successes in this area. And then I've got a document there that if you would look at on the 22 budget. Now, what y'all need to remember is that we expected, like every other state, that our budget would be decimated this past year, correct? Because of the pandemic, right? But guess what? It wasn't. And so there were cuts that were made in the previous budget year anticipating the impacts of the pandemic, which most states did have, by the way, but we didn't. And we didn't because we allowed people to work. We allowed people to safely work. We didn't shut down the state in a more draconian way. And so our budget really thrived in spite of the pandemic, which allowed us in 22, and that's why this document that Julie's passing around will show you all of the things that we added back to the budget, or many of them, in regards to some of the programs, the respite program that B&B back here does. Very familiar with B&B, and thank you all for being here. Have such respect for what you do. Those services are important. And we made sure that we corrected that in the budget. So in fact, the impact was never felt because we fixed it before it ever really produced a cut. Does that make sense? So look at that. You'll see rate increases. You'll see why rate increases. Rate increases because you can't find caregivers right now. If you are getting some kind of service today that requires a caregiver, okay, overwhelmingly the services that individuals with developmental individuals get in this state are home care services. If you need a caregiver, well, you can only get that caregiver if they're available to employ, right? And the way we employ more caregivers is by getting the wage up. We need the best caregivers taking care of the most frail and vulnerable people in our society. Is that right? So we have to be able to pay them to do that. And so you saw an enormous impact there. You'll see increases there. We did increases for skilled nursing facilities as well. They've been hammered by the pandemic. Any congregate setting, right? But let me tell you what the pandemic has taught us. The pandemic has taught us that people are safest at home, not in institutions. And by the way, how many of y'all know how many individuals with developmental disabilities are still in state hospitals? Is somebody here from the state hospital? Anybody here from the region?
DBHDD, is that a question y'all can answer?
No, I can tell. Well, I just was curious. Yeah, okay. Good to see. You can't recognize everybody with mask on. Folks, there are a little over 100 people with developmental disabilities in the state, in a state hospital in the state of Georgia. Now, I've been doing this a long time. I remember when our hospitals were loaded with folks with behavioral health issues and with developmental issues. We have dramatically changed. We have dramatically changed and moved toward home and community-based services in this state. And we should all be proud of that. We should be. And I want you to look at some of the things we've done just recently. You know, a lot of times people talk about Medicaid and Medicaid expansion. Let me tell you what we've focused on. The leadership in the Georgia legislature is focused on this. And I've helped to lead that in my position. Increasing Medicaid for those that Medicaid was created for. Medicaid was created in 1965 to take care of women with children, the disabled, the aged, blind, disabled, frail seniors, people with mental health issues. That's what Medicaid was created for. We are doubling down, and this year in the Georgia legislature, we've already established as our Republican caucus, our focus this year is going to be behavioral mental health. Folks, we are doubling down our expenditures every session on improving services to the disabled in the state with Medicaid. That is the alternative. And that is the best alternative. That is the best thing we can do until everybody's out of an institution and those that aren't in institutions are actually getting the services they need in the community. Because what we've learned with mental health and behavioral health is that if we're going to get people out of institutions in the community, they've got to have supports in the community, right? If we do it without those supports, they fail. That's where our focus is. That's where it'll continue to be. I'll continue to focus on any legislation that comes through my committee that allows us to improve. You look here, in 2018, we passed the autism bill. We dramatically increased coverage on the treatment of autism in this state, required that. We've hearing aid bill I mentioned here. Adoption reform, Gracie's Law we just did this year. The ABLE program, that's a huge one. That was 2016, you'll see on this document. That was an enormous success. We're going to continue to do those things to take care of those that are most frail and most vulnerable in our society. That's our commitment. And unless there are any questions, that's really all I have to say. But I appreciate y'all being here. Appreciate the work that y'all do. You mentioned, appreciate you having us here. Born and raised here. I remember the Kicklighter School. I know well the history of this location. And I know how powerful it is in our community. And so we thank you for having me here and for having everybody here. Thank you, Julie. I have great respect for you.
Thank you, Jesse. I do want to put a plug in for the ABLE bill real quick. One of the things, and Gina, raise your hand. She's a transition person. One of the things that we've always heard about when parents are getting ready to have their students exit public school, and we're really pushing work, is the fear of losing the state and federal benefits. Well, the ABLE program, Achieving a Better Life Experience, is a financial tool where you can put money into an ABLE account, which is like a financial college plan, and you can pull the money out for recognized expenses. And we are going to have a presentation. I haven't talked to the guys yet about this, but as a parent mentor, we're doing a workshop on the ABLE account and Social Security work incentives later this year. Because the whole goal of getting kids across the stage is to get them across and get them either into employment and get them into school for further education, which kind of leads to kicking off, if you follow the presentation law, which is really just a guide, is the role of the school district. All right, so today you're going to hear about what the school districts in Georgia basically do to talk about transition. And we also have a role of connecting parents with agencies. Again, I said I was a parent mentor. My program falls under the Georgia Parent Mentor Partnership, which is a collaborative effort between local school districts and the State Board of Education. To be a parent mentor, you have to have two kids. Not two kids, I have to have two kids, but a kid who receives services via an IEP. And if you're from Chatham, you kind of heard my story about my oldest child and her onset of mental illness, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, when she was in middle school. And then looking for resources for mental health, like Jesse was talking about, there's not any in Chatham, well, at least back then, much better now. But I found out about the Parent Mentor Partnership and reached out, and I was lucky enough to kind of decide I wanted to go back to work, and I had been a special education teacher. At the same time, a vacancy was there. So it's been a perfect match for me because I've used my journey as a parent mentor to support my two girls, one with OCD and one with dyslexia, to get through high school. And I call her OC Diva. I know that's inappropriate, but we do say OC Diva is now working in Atlanta. She actually owns her own condo in Buckhead. And she doesn't really like people. She's very upfront about that. And she's got the perfect match built based on her strengths. She does social media marketing for a big tech group who's out of Canada. And she doesn't really see people. Her boss works out of Miami. And who knew that you could carve out a job based on your strengths and preferences? But it can be done. And it's done with a community of people who work with you on the journey. So we're going to talk a little bit about the school journey. So you're in school, and your kid is receiving services via that IEP, Individual Education Plan. And you could be in elementary years, middle and high. I'm a high school person, so usually parents start seeing me when they're thinking about life after school, transfer of rights at 18, Social Security, medical issues. But what I really like to talk about is getting ready for work. So hence the connections with all these agencies tonight. Under the law of special education, your IEP team has an obligation to connect you to resources and agencies who may be able to provide transition services or pay for services along your child's journey. Again, everybody's eligibility is very different than school system eligibility, even terminology. So transition folks and/or your case manager or your special education teacher will work with you along the way. We're also going to talk about family support services tonight. We're really lucky. We're going to have some information about the Georgia Pediatric Program, which is the acronym GAP. And that's really for our most medically fragile families, most medically fragile kids. And you think about those families, if you have a very fragile kid, it's very hard for you to come out to a workshop like this. So having it taped and shared is wonderful. And you're going to hear, of course, about the NALCOP waivers and the next steps. So we talk about transition. When your kid who receives services through that IEP hits 9th grade or turns 16, you're going to start hearing about the transition plan. It's basically thinking about a plan to get your kid or your young adult to their life goals after they leave school. And everybody who has an IEP has a team behind them in the school who's working with that individual, helping them make those goals, get that vision where I want to be, and make a plan to get there. And it's a tool that we actually use to prepare our students with individuals with disabilities who receive that service under IEP for independent living, employment, or future education and training. Again, it goes back to, we don't graduate to the couch. When you leave us, we've got two places to go. We either want you to go to work or you're going to continue your education or skill. So that's that transition plan. And it's a part of your IEP. It's not a separate document. It's embedded in your IEP. And if you have a young child and your district uses something called Go IEP, you may not see that document until your child turns 16 or enters 9th grade. But whichever one comes first is something to start thinking about. I always tell parents, start thinking about the journey earlier, when they enter middle school. Do you see your child working in the community? I go back and think about my child, Haley OC I never thought that she would, be somebody who would want to go work for a big corporation. I was worried about the triggers for her OCD. But then she found a way to work within her disability area by exposing herself to the triggers and say, I don't like people, so therefore I'm going to work behind my computer screen. I'm like, that's a great idea. She's very isolated during the day, and she has actually figured out what works for her. That goes back to being self-determined, knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, your preferences, and we need to all help our kids, both typical and special needs kids, become self-determined so they can self-advocate. So again, going back to that IEP piece, your kid is in 16 or entering 9th grade. As your kid moves through the school years in the high school, you're going to be asked by the IEP team about inviting agencies who can come to participate in the meeting for transition planning. We have to do that with your permission. So you want to say, yes, I want to hear everything your community has, so bring them on. So then what they do, they come and they listen to your child's hopes and dreams and next steps, and they look at the data and they help, build a plan where they can figure out how can we put this young person into the community where they can work and have the supports. That's a good transition plan. So think about that. Your school is a partner with all these agencies that we have out there. So next, part of the journey as a parent mentor is I always talk about who could help you along the way. And when I started, I think 9 years ago, I learned about family support services and realized it can do so much to enhance the quality of life for individuals with disabilities and their families. And so we're going to have Pauline Shaw, who's going to talk briefly about family support services and who it's for and how to apply, and then just the kind of services it could provide. And then we're going to pass it on to the next person. Pauline, are you here? Oh, there she is. All right, come on, Pauline. If there's a family support agency that can stretch $1, that's B&B Care Services with Pauline. So.
I don't even know what slides you got. Just okay, I'll just go on. Thank y'all for having us. My name is Pauline Shaw. I'm with B&B Care Services. I am the Family Support Program Manager. Lynette Bragg is back here in the back. She is the CEO of B&B Care Services. She started this business a long time ago, and I don't think she'll mind me sharing. When Lynette had a son named Scott with developmental disabilities, she had a younger son named Matt, and her plan was to develop a business that when she was gone, Matt would be able to care for his brother and provide an income and provide a service for the community. Right before Matt turned 18, he was killed in a car wreck. And Lynette will tell you to this day that not only did she lose her younger son that day, she lost her oldest son's future. So we really encourage and work with our families to make sure you have a plan, but not just one plan. And when I'm out speaking, I'm very passionate about telling you, don't just have plan A, have a plan B and a plan C. So we are very, very, education is important to us at B&B Care Services, because we don't feel that that's something that you need to pass by, is educating yourself and making those plans for your loved one on where they're going to go and what's going to happen to them when you're gone. And I tell families all the time, you know, there used to be a saying that you have two things to do in this life, and that was pay your taxes and die. Well, you can get away without paying your taxes sometimes, but you're not going to get away without dying. And it's a hard topic to talk about, and we're happy to hold your hand through it. But it's something that needs to be addressed. And you can't just have a plan A, because you're never going to know when you're going to need that plan B or even plan C. So that is very important to us at B&B. Under our roof at B&B, not only do we do family supports, but we do supported employment. We do the elderly disabled waiver program, community transitions, which was formerly the MFP program. And we recently just added veteran services under our roof. So, but what I do is family supports, and that is through the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. And like I said, we work very much to empower our families and not enable you. Because empowerment is how you're going to get through all this. You've got to educate and empower yourself. Family supports is a needs-based program. It's not a want-based program. One of the myths about family supports is, oh, we're going to get $3,000. That is a myth, okay? It is based on what your needs are, and it's up to $3,000. This money that is for family supports is provided by our state, like Representative Jesse Petrea that was just here. They're funding this money. In fiscal year 21, we faced budget cuts. And like he said, they got those funds put back in there. But this is a little bit of money that, if used correctly and used with a great plan, can go very far. And how do you do that? How do you stretch those dollars? Is other resources. One of the best resources, and the first thing I find out, and I know we all hate paperwork, and people will say that's the one complaint I get is, I hate paperwork and yours is long. It may be long, but those questions help me figure out what you need, what your family needs. We can have a general application that doesn't tell me anything but demographics, but I need to know something about the individual that you're looking for assistance. And in order to do that, I've got to ask some questions. I've got to have a little information. So that's why we ask those questions, so that we can make it an individualized family support plan, okay? But we'll tap you into those resources, and you can take that little bit of money. You may only need $500 of it by the time we tap you into resources. But my biggest resource is, I always try to make sure the individuals have some form of Medicaid. And why is that? Because of 5 little letters. EPSDT, Early Periodic Screening Diagnostic Treatment. How many of you have ever heard of that? Knew about EPSDT? It's been on the books. It's a federal act. It's been around since 1967. President Johnson put it in effect. What does it mean? It means Early Periodic Screening Diagnostic Treatment, which means if your child under the age of 21 has any form of Medicaid, whether it's a CMO like WellCare or Amerigroup, CareSource, Medicaid has to provide whatever is medically necessary. That is how we got underwear covered, diapers, pull-ups. They start at age 2 now, okay? What's sad is a lot of people did not know about that. So when I get parents that call me and they have a form of Medicaid, or if they don't, then I try to help them get a form of Medicaid, because I want them to take full advantage of this. Recently, I just had a mom come running up to me when I seen her, and she said, guess what? I was like, what? She said, look at my child's shoes. And her child has AFOs, and she had on some of those new cool Billy shoes, you know, the kind that zips up that you can put your foot down in there with the AFO on it. It's not hard to get in. Well, guess what? Because of EPSDT, Medicaid covered not one pair of those shoes, but two. Okay? So there are resources out there. You can take the 25 categories that's in family support that is offered, and you can use those categories for what you absolutely cannot get anywhere else. Okay? And within each of those 25 categories are different goods and services that you can use. And it's not just for the individual, it's based on their disability, but it may be a YMCA family membership, because this program was designed to keep the family together, okay? So that's what we want to do, is educate you on all these categories. We fund all these categories. We want you to understand what these categories are and what goods and services are available, and where else can you get those goods and services, so that this little bit of money that you get from family supports can go farther, okay? So, you know, when you get a family support application, you know, fill it out, and don't be mad because you got to fill that out. Just know this is going to help my family, okay? Because that's what it's designed for, is to help the family and help that individual. It may be a book. You may just need to educate yourself with a book. A lot of people are not even aware that you can get books. We have them for behaviors. Why do I need a transition portfolio? You know, what will happen to my child, my special needs child, when I am gone? You know, these are the type of things. Maybe it's about the sibling, you know, the brother or the sister that doesn't understand what's going on with their family member. Life beyond the classroom. This is going to be important when they're transitioning out of high school and they don't have those supports from the school system anymore. Okay. The complete guide to creating life plans, all kind of books that you can get, that when you're home, especially right now, you know, you can sit home and read something, you know. One of our biggest categories right now is respite. How many of you know what respite is? I get families that will call me and say, well, what is respite? Well, respite is where we have a DBHDD approved private home health care agency that will come into your home and provide you a break. Now, parents think, well, does that mean I have to leave the house? No, you don't have to leave the house. You can go in there and watch your soap opera if that's what you want to do. You can go in there and take you a bubble bath. You can go in there and read one of these books. You can get you a nap, Paula. You know, how many of y'all need a nap sometimes? I need a nap. I got to be up at 6:30 in the morning and drive my daughter to Statesboro to see her personal trainer, you know, and then take her to school and then go to work. So when I get home tomorrow, I'm going to need a nap. So you can use it for respite. When they get transitioned out of high school, they might need some more community living supports. That is coaching and teaching. It may be taking them to the grocery store, you know, teaching them how to get their groceries. It may be managing their checking account, you know, helping them with that ABLE account, you know, community access, just getting them out in the community. You know, it may be taking them for a walk at Forsyth, maybe taking them to the mall, and maybe taking them, you know, wherever they want to go. You maybe taking them to Savannah Bananas game, but it gives them somebody else to go out there with, okay? So with that being said, I'm going to introduce your next speaker that's going to tell you something. I work very closely with this agency to help provide those respite services and those other services. And if you would like to speak to me, or if you would like more information about these resources, about family supports, applying, you know, just give me a call. I have business cards up there. I'll be happy to talk to you. You can have another waiver such as the EDWP, CCSP, GAP. You can have Katie Beckett and all that and still use family supports. The only thing you cannot have is now comp services, because this program mimics the now comp waiver, just on a much smaller scale. But once you get into waiver services, then you will not need family supports any longer. But family supports is flexible dollars, that can be used to help your family and your family member get what they need, especially when they losing those supports that, we value so much in the school system. So again, if you would like any more information, please just reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you. There are some books up there that can help you understand too. Understanding the medical assistance, home and community-based services. This is a great book that explains the different waivers and what those waivers do and how to go about applying for those. And just know that one thing I just want to add that we do educate the families on is, and I believe the region will speak on this, but just because you've transitioned out of high school doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get a waiver, okay? I get a lot of people that think that. That's another myth. Oh, as soon as they turn 18, they're getting a waiver. That's not necessarily true. But what you can get, and the only thing you may need is some family supports. So let us help you and let us help empower you so that you can then do what's best for your family and your family member. But I'd next like to introduce Tyler Dorn. He is with Help at Home, and it's an agency that I proudly work with and partner with and have great relationship with. So Tyler, if you'd like to come up.
Yeah,
There we go.
we're gonna start with a video that was actually done just recently with one of the members we've supported for many years, and it's actually with one of our clinical LPNs, and she has been with the company for about 6 years, 5 or 6 years. Was a PCA at one point with formerly Coastal Home Care. So Help at Home is now, our owners had retired about 2.5 years ago. Was formerly Coastal Home Care. They've been doing the business for about 40 years. We're now with Help at Home, which is a Chicago-based company. And I'm going to show you this video just to talk a little bit about, kind of how our services have went in line for this family and how they've been able to impact. So I'll let you kind of go ahead and I'll go into it.
The other hand, Mary. Thank you, girl. Oh, we got a cell phone. Who do you want to call? Who do you want to call? You want to call Mr. Mitra? Okay. Hey, Mr. Mitra. Meredith and I are playing some Ned. Okay. All right. Bye, Mr. Mitra. Oh, hold on. You want to tell her you want to go out to lunch? Okay. All right, Mr. Mitra. Meredith says she wants you to take her out to lunch, okay? Okay. All right.
Being a nurse has always been my dream since I was a little girl. Even when I was in elementary school, we would have career day. I would always dress up as a nurse because I knew that's what I wanted to be in life. I wanted to provide a service. I wanted to help those in need. I wanted to make a difference in people's lives. I was in a hospital environment for 30 years, very high stress, very fast paced. I was looking to slow things down just a little bit. And I was looking for the opportunity to work in an environment where I really had a chance to establish a relationship with a client, their family, other members on the care team, and their physicians, to really establish a collaborative approach with the client where I really felt like I was in a situation where I was making a difference in the client's life. While I was in nursing school and we did our clinicals, and the majority of our clinicals were in a hospital setting, and I kind of knew right off that would not be the setting for me. I wanted something where I could get into a normal routine with. I wanted something to where I could have hours because I had a young child at home. So that was my main reason for looking into the home health career path. When I first came to work for Help at Home, it was like a really big change for me. I wasn't exhausted anymore when I came home from work. And I just felt like I had really accomplished something. And that's a really big deal in nursing because nursing's a lot about caring. So, I think that was kind of like my aha moment that, hey, I think I'm going to stay here. I've been working at Help at Home for about 5.5 years now. And to be honest, I couldn't see myself doing any other career path. I feel good that I'm giving someone that support that they need. I feel good about myself being able to provide someone with a service. Sometimes we're the only family that some of these clients have. So to be able to give that to them or to help them make it through another day is really rewarding.
If you're a nurse that's looking for a flexible schedule, a less stressful work environment, and the opportunity to establish a personal relationship with both a client and their family, Help at Home is the company for you.
So I know we've had several kind of guests speaking, and I'm kind of just tying everything all in one because, Julie, thank you for letting me present, but just from the school system. So I've been with Help at Home and Coastal Home Care for about 3.5 years. And, and one of the things that I've been really grateful about just as I've come from a special education family. Autism runs in my family, so does mental health. So I'm a huge advocate in terms of what are the resources out there for families. What I like about where I'm at with Help at Home is they're very inclusive. I mean, we work with people that have behaviors and high challenges within the community, at home, in the school system, and how can we help support the families and also that member. I think, we talk a lot about, what can we do for the family, but at the end of the day is how can we empower that individual to be better, you have inspiring dreams and goals. And one of the things that, what I've learned at Help at Home is, I've been able to connect with B&B, Pauline Shaw and I don't know how many nights we've talked at midnight trying to, come up with a plan to help this family. But, to us, it's how can we impact? And, I think that in the school system, so I'm going to talk a little bit just about some of the services we do at Help at Home, but within family support, we have the respite program, and we can do a little bit and a lot of things with Pauline, depending on what you want. Now, respite, I've done situations where families are struggling with after school daycare. You've got an individual, depending on either the medically fragile diagnoses and seizures and or behaviors, finding after school care is really hard. I know Pauline and I have worked a lot on that with families to help utilize respite services to see how we can help support families if they're working, et cetera, as well as the pediatric program GAP. So within this, it is a program that you have to be under 21. We've got anywhere from infants all the way up until 21. It's not a waiver, it's a Medicaid program. And one of the things that, it's not primarily autism based. It's going to be, is there a medically fragile diagnosis in terms of the need? Now, we've got, in terms of Lowcountry Down syndrome, we support a lot of members in terms of Down syndrome. And I think that's important to really understand what is out there and what does GAP really, what does it look like? So it's skilled nursing services as well as personal support services. So, we've been able to, it's going to work with the primary physicians. So typically if someone calls me asking, am I eligible for GAP? I'm under 21. It's for, my son, my child, my daughter, whoever it might be. But within that, we're going to go ahead and ask for two things. We're going to ask for an IEP, and we're going to ask for the medical records from the primary physician once we get that release of information. And from there, we start the process and really walk you through eligibility in terms of how many hours you're going to get, all of that. Now, some people think, I'm going to get GAP, I'm going to get all these hours and have it. Well, that's, again, it's going to be kind of physician guided. But, for families, for GAP, one of the things that I've really appreciated is it really promotes inclusiveness. So we have a member, and not in Chatham County, actually, it's in Effingham, but, we have a member who is very medically fragile with seizures, and he can't go to school because they don't have a nurse at the school and that can be standby assist and give rescue meds and all that. And one of the things I really appreciated was this member now goes to school full time. He's able to attend all of his classes, and we're able to partner with the school system and send a nurse in there the entire day with the member. And that's huge. He is a very high functioning individual, but seizures is holding him back. So, one of the things in terms of, where I want to help families is it's not about, what agency you use. It's about, how can you find the right people? As I've came to Georgia, Pauline is, she will bend over backwards for anyone. Anyone that knows Pauline, if there's a will, there's a way. And, I think for a lot of the pediatric program is a lot of families don't know if you are eligible or what your child might be eligible for in terms of services, as well as for, there is other supports that, Pauline had talked about. But with the pediatric program, I say that because a lot of people may apply and be discouraged in terms of not being eligible. But in that case, you can go hand in hand with state funded money with Pauline, or they can work simultaneously in some situations. So, in our GAP program, you're going to have, so someone that does get approved for GAP services, we have a clinical supervisor that works hand in hand with the family and the physician, because it can be very overwhelming to families in terms of, some of the best nurses are always the family members, but it's a lot to take in, especially at a young age. So we have clinical supervisors that are based, pediatric specialized, that are really going to work with the families and work with, medications. And GAP's a lot about, making this individual more stable, that over time, they don't need all the hours and support. So, some of the things that it's very intense in terms of, the trainings that our staff need, and for the family to really follow the physician's plan of treatment. But, in terms of GAP services, if there's any questions, we have a couple brochures kind of over there. If someone is interested in that service, we can talk more after in terms of how you might be eligible, et cetera. Now we also do state funded supports. And one of the reasons in terms of inclusiveness that I really appreciate about Help at Home is, we kind of support, every kind of waiver and program out there. I know that, for some agencies, they're specialized in just GAP services. And, for us, we've worked with the Comp Now waivers. We work, I have, in terms of, talking a little bit about just mental health and developmental disabilities, I've partnered up in contracts to kind of help give families extra support, because we weren't able, we exceeded all the funds for state funded money through BMB. And, I think for families out there, it's hard. And I think for individuals, you guys have, bright futures, and we want to be part of that path in terms of the success there. And I think on the provider side, Jesse Petrea had talked about it earlier in terms of, finding good staff. I mean, in today's world, I show that video because Demetria is someone that I'm very close to. So she used to be a PCA with our company. She's now an LPN. Help at Home really pushes career ladders. We've had individuals that currently that we serve, but they actually are employed by us as well. And they do things within the office, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about as an organization, is how can we impact the community, not only for members we support, but how can we in return have other opportunities for everyone. And we have employed people in terms of things within our organization. We've helped, I've connected families with, I have a member in Savannah that her daughter just aged out of the school system, but it was, how can she give back to the community? And she actually now does many volunteer projects with United Way. So I think she cleans the beach now. I think every Sunday they do a Tide cleanup. And some of the things that I want to do for families is, how can I connect you with the resources that I've got knowledge of, or might be able to in return tell you about Medicaid. How do you even apply to Medicaid or do that? Because I think for a lot of families, they don't know where to start. And I think for Pauline and I, it's a lot about, what is the next step? I get many calls just asking me, and sometimes it is kind of a treasure hunt and a needle in a haystack of trying to figure out where we can go. But I will be kind of sticking around a little bit afterwards. So if there's anyone that has direct questions, I know I've met several people already, and I'm already familiar with some here. And for those that are online, my contact will be listed. So you guys are more than welcome to reach out to me, and I can see how I can help. But I appreciate Employability, Lowcountry Down Syndrome for putting this on. And if there's anything you guys need from me, I'll be here afterwards. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Go anywhere yet. Got a chance. All right. I think, as I look around, I call it the deer in headlights look. I think one of the things, as I want people to know, you don't have to remember all this and know all this. What you need to know, there are people in our community who know pieces of this, and we all kind of work together.
So if you're still in school, your first point of contact is always going to be your case manager, AKA special education teacher. If you're in a district with a parent mentor, and Christina Hollins moved to parent mentor world. Raise your hand, Christina. She had the deer in headlights look earlier. But, we're a resource to y'all, family support. And what we all try to do is use our resources and know, you don't have to know it, but you have to know somebody out there who does know it. So here's some test questions, and Pauline knows the answers, but say you are receiving family support right now, your kiddo is receiving Easter Seals, B&D, or Gateway Family Support Services, and you need a break. Your kid has said, I need a break from you, Mom, and you need a break from your kid. Pauline talked a little bit about that. That's called respite services. So family support, you may not realize that there's a service out there for that, but if you come and you call Tyler, or you call Pauline, or you call me, I'm going to say, oh my gosh, this kid needs a break from his mom. So it's respite service. So, or you got a dependent adult. Your adult's now out of school and is working and needs support in learning a new skill at work, which happens a lot. But you're not on the now comp waiver yet. You're on family support services yet. So this is actually a category of family support that I really want to push more in our region. Is called, where's my employment people? Supportive employment family support services. So you have that resource. Again, you may not know that off the top of your head, but if you call Brendan and say, Julie's having a really hard time learning this new task at work, she could lose her job, but she's not on the waiver, how do we fund that support person to support her at that job? Family support could have a piece of that. And then say you're in school, which this is my favorite one. This is how I found out about family support and all the great things it can do. Remember, it's a payer of last resort. So you have to really go down those categories. Who pays for what? School under IDEA, the special education law, has a category where we have to cover. Medicaid has categories. Private insurance has categories. It goes down. But say a lot of people don't pay for leisure activities. So then I look at family support office and say, I have a kid that needs age-appropriate community or leisure activities, like Pauline mentioned the YMCA. So you could say, I wish my son could get involved in something with his peers. And I would be thinking off the bat, family support, and that'd be family support, community access group, a group together, or it could be family support, community integration. Pauline, thumbs up on that one? Yeah. So again, you don't have to know, but you have to know that we're out here, and think of it like, I just have to reach to either my case manager, Lowcountry Down syndrome, employability, probably want health. Just think of us like a network. So now you want to introduce them? You want me to do it?
Yeah, you can. And I'll say, kind of in regards to respite, I tell families, you don't necessarily know you need respite until you get respite. And, for some families, I know Pauline and I have done it where, it's nervous being a parent, having someone else take care of your child. For Help at Home's been pushing, vaccines, because with COVID, everything going on, we've got the entire roster in terms of our staff that have been vaccinated. And because that is, in some situations, if that's a preference in terms of a family, we're going to honor that. And we're going to do our best to make sure that happens. As well as, for respite, Pauline and I have done a few kind of unique things where I had an individual who had autism who was in the school system, but his brother was getting married. I think his brother or sister was getting married. The family was really nervous that individual was not going to last the whole wedding. It's a long day. And they were nervous about it. They've never used respite before. So what we did is we went ahead, did a meet and greet, sent a staff out there to get familiar with that individual. Well, they ended up connecting. They had a blast. Well, they attended the wedding. The staff went with them to the wedding. And they ended up being able to leave, but the family was able to enjoy the rest of their night. And I think that's important in terms of some of the things you can do. I know in Effingham, we have a group that is, they do a support group sometimes on Saturdays. So we'll send staff in to work with their individual or their child so that mom and dad can go to the support group and not be distracted in terms of being able to care for their child. So I think there's a lot of different ways you can utilize it. And I think that some families, it is nerve-wracking, and, I want to be part of that process to really help ease your mind. And, one of the things that it is who's coming to my house. And, typically we're going to send the staff out there, et cetera, to try to give you some peace of mind. So, but in terms of next, I think we got Miss Dana.
Yeah, Dana.
So talking about the now and comp waivers.
Yeah. Let me say a little bit. All right, so thank you, Tyler. And in case you're wondering, Dana has 3 weeks to go. Would you like to sit?
Huh?
You want to sit?
Oh, I've been sitting for a while. and I'm
Okay, you
kind
wanna
of
stretch it
stiff
out?
now. I
Yeah.
gotta stretch it out a little bit.
One thing I do want to say, if you're, in the Savannah, Chatham County Public Schools, and Gina, pipe in about y'all, how Effingham handles it. Thinking about that journey through high school. Your kid is in 9th through 12th, and your child has an intellectual or developmental disability. So your school team is going to be looking to connect you with that agency linkage I talked about under the law of special education. We reach out to our community partners who can or provide some type of services or may pay for services. So in Chatham, our goal in Chatham is to hook our kids up to family support, and we have 3 providers. Pauline is B&B, Gateway, and Easter Seals. But when we get ready for Now Comp, we really try to start having those conversations with parents before they come to high school. We want you to be on Now Comp radar early. So you'll hear about it right at 9th grade when you do that transition meeting. And of course, we didn't have one the last 2 years in Chatham County. When you go from middle to high school, you hear about a lot of things, about the diploma options and all that. You'll start hearing about Now Comp. And remember, again, you don't have to remember all this tonight, but you just have to know there's somebody in your community, in your school, who knows about it, who will be pushing you to do this before you leave, to do the application. When I say before you leave, before you exit or graduate public school. How long did I push you, Paula? For a long time. So I'm a pusher, but I call it the cliff. When our kids exit out of school, there's nothing. So, and while we're still out there, and I hear from a lot of adults, parents of adult kids who are now in their 40s, 50s, who need to connect to the services, it's really important to get that connection before you leave. So we're going to be connecting you with Now Comp, and we're going to help you with those applications. So I'm happy to introduce Dana Christian from DBHDD. That is an acronym for Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. And she is the intake coordinator. And she has a crew here tonight, which I'd like to go ahead and let you introduce them, so I'll pass it over to you.
But I greatly appreciate to have DBHD here tonight. So.
Does anybody from DBHDD want to stand up and
Yes, they
be
do.
like, hello? Y'all can't or y'all don't. Sorry, we're put on the spot. But like we were saying, I'm with the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental. Y'all can't hear me? Maybe I gotta take this off for a minute. My doctor may not be too happy with that. But I'm with the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, and we cover Chatham County. We go as far down as St. Mary's, Brunswick, Waycross, all the way up to Dublin and some other counties in that area as well. And we provide a lot of services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy. A lot of times if you got a medically fragile individual, that's kind of some of the people we have in our purview as well. And we provide a lot of community-based services, in-home supports. I'm trying to go by just so everybody's, the way. Some of the services we provide are going to be through the now part of our waiver or through the comp part of our waiver, depending on which funding source is kind of been awarded to the individual based on your needs. Some individuals need the in-home supports where they come in and say, okay, let's help you be a little bit more independent, learn those money, like how to make a meal, maybe independent living skills. We also have the, community engagement piece where they go out in the community, get involved in the community. We also have behavior supports, specialized medical supplies.
There you go. Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
That's some of the services through now, depending on funding source. And we also have community residential alternatives where people go to have group home placement if that's kind of more intensive services they need. A lot of families are like, we really want to be able to keep our family members in the home as long as possible, but we want to think about what's going to happen to us when our family member, if we're no longer there, where can we have our family member go? So we also have the community the group home placement. We also have day programs. A lot of people kind of associate it with going to school. A lot of individuals will say it's school related, but it's about the socialization, getting involved with just continuing that process for when they leave school. And a lot of the day programs we have, they take individuals out into the community, learn about, some will go out grocery shopping and learn their money, like just really utilize those money management skills that they're learning every day, and how to interact with people out in the community and in each other, the daily living skills. We also have pre-vocational services where they might come to employability and learn job skills. We also have deaf services where somebody might, if they need deaf services, the interpreter, employment services, transportation. If at any point y'all need to just jump in and ask a question, please jump in and ask a question.
I think if you go back right here, I think when we talk about, you know,
And
the purpose of it, you know, why, you know, I push waivers. Why is the waiver important? People are like, what's a waiver? So if you can talk a little bit about,
right.
You know, what it does, and then the difference between the two of them. Yeah.
And that was one thing I was just fixing to get to
sorry.
as well. With the, we have the now comp waiver, and the now part of it is really for those individuals that might not need as something as intensive. They're still living at home possibly, and their family members are like, you know, we really want them to learn how to make a sandwich or do their laundry, make up their bed. Somebody comes in and helps them learn those step-by-step skills and really increasing that independence and quality of life for them. And I think we can probably go into the comp part. The comp part is works a lot with individuals that might need the group home placement, or the medically fragile individuals who might need the skilled nursing care and get that really intensive support. And it's all about being able to be out in the community and kind of trying to stay out of that hospital institutional setting. So we got that. Just some of the eligibility for our waiver. And if anybody if I need to speak up, let me know. Yes, okay, sorry. I'm a quiet person usually. So for the now comp waiver, we serve a lot of individuals with, like I said, cerebral palsy, intellectual disability, or something closely related. And whenever y'all are thinking about applying for our waiver, something I recommend is having all those psychological evaluations that you had in school, getting the IEPs, getting with your physician and getting those medical records, all past psychologicals, all current psychologicals. Sometimes our psychologist likes to see something within the last 3 years. So if there's been a psychological evaluation in the last 3 years, go ahead and get those records, have a copy of it. And if there is anything in the past that's been done, like IQ testing or adaptive behavior functioning, have all of those psychological evaluations and IEPs, school records, because the more information we have, the better our psychologists can make a decision. We also would need copies of the Medicaid card, Social Security card. We also, birth certificate, the release of information, because sometimes we can't call people like your physicians to get those records. If you don't have a copy of the psychological or school records, the school system and your doctors are not going to let us talk to them unless we have that release of information. So all the information that we can have, maybe the quicker we can determine, hey, are you eligible for our waiver or not? Anything else? Driver's license. If you got a driver's license or an ID card, go ahead and send that in too. So I'm trying to think, what else do we have? Oh, if you are above, if your family member is above 18 and you have legal guardianship or power of attorney, provide that documentation so that we have it on file too, so that we can know, hey, this is what's going on. If somebody's under 18, we know they're a minor. So, we do have individuals that have come in with Rett syndrome, so medical verification of the disability, whatever that medical disability is. There are other slides.
Yeah, that's basically it. But did you talk about just about the eligibility? I know you talked on that about the Medicaid eligibility.
It is a Medicaid waiver, so if somebody has Medicaid, you would need to provide that card because that's how you get the services through our waiver. If you don't have Medicaid and you would like to utilize some of these services, go ahead and start the process. I think you would have to go through the Social Security office, or you can go through, I think, DFACS as well to kind of find out how to get that process started.
Did you talk about once they do the application, the status that they're in until they're awarded?
The process for the application process is for us, you can either go online and complete the application at georgiacollaborative.com, I think.
I have that.
Or you can fill out a paper application. Or you can call us and we can help you fill out that application as well. If you decide to do it online, you can easily upload documents there as well. You can go through your school system to get the paper application as well. And usually whenever you apply for our waiver, we'll upload it if it's a paper copy, or if you do online, I'll look at it and I will see if we have all the documents we need. And if we've got everything we need, I go on and let our psychologist know, and he'll review all the documents that we have. And if he wants more information, I'm usually calling you up saying, hey, do you have this copy of, like, if he wants a psychological from, let's say, 6 years ago, I'm going to be asking for that. Sometimes we get a psychological from when somebody was 7. So if you've got anything more updated than 7 years old, it's good to have that, because I know our psychologist will say, hey, need something more recent. Yes, Ms. Pauline.
Dana, I was going to add, if they're enrolled in family support and they, like Medicaid's not covering their psychological, then family support may be able to assist with getting that paying for that psychological to get through.
Right. And usually our psychologist is, like I said before, wants to see multiple resources from the evaluation, lots of documentation previously and more updates. So if there's nothing within the last 3 years, you might want to ask for it or try to get one done. And once we've found somebody that's pre-eligible, then one of our staff, who is our planning list navigator, Sandra Swilling, she will call you and do a needs assessment just to decide urgency of need. And we do have Jeff Thompson here with us, who is part of our agency, that if the next step in that process is the awaiting funding stage, and it would basically be which funding source are you going to be getting, the now part or the comp part. And after you've been found pre-eligible, you're on the planning list. And then at some point you'll be assigned a planning list administrator who will help you get into the services that you need. Any questions?
Y'all have any questions for Dana? Oh, good. Jeff, did you have something?
I
was going to introduce you, but you can come right on up. Here you go.
Thank you, Dana. One thing that, Dana's been doing, one thing that came out that was really important, she mentioned to me, we were talking the other day, if you're in school, at one point, your records will disappear. I think it's 10 years. I'm not, Gina, is that correct? Thank you.
10 years in the state of Georgia.
In the ideal world, that you'd be presented an electronic copy of everything we have, but we know it's not an ideal world yet. So when you think about these ready to apply, and this is not just for waivers, this is for Social Security. You may need it for medical provider. You may need it for family support. But getting the information that the school system has on your child would be a very beneficial thing. And if you're in Savannah, Chatham County, Parent Mentor, me, and other parent mentors we have, can help you with that by using a school release that you would get from your school or your special education case manager. Pauline, you want to say something about that real quick?
I just want to say that when they're applying for the now comp waiver, I know we as parents, we've been doing it, we've been caring for them for so long. Sometimes we forget what we do every day, just the little things. So I always suggest to my parents, get you a journal and write down what you do for your child every day. You know, it may be tying their shoes, you know, it may be helping them put the seatbelt on in the car. But those are little things that the DBHDD needs to know just how much support they are in need of. And when you call and you working with somebody over the phone, you tend to forget and you be like, oh, I should have told them this or I should have told them that. Get you a notebook, write that stuff down so that when you're talking to them, you can make sure you tell them all those things so that you have enough support and that they're aware of the amount of support that's needed.
Yeah.
Because we forget about
We
it.
do. We want to focus on the positive, and I call it, you need to focus on this situation, you need to focus on the negative. You know, you need to be able to share family support and DBHDD what's going on that's not going well. You know, it's like when you go to the doctor and he says, how are you doing? And you go, okay, that's not what you should say. You should say, what's wrong? Why are you at the doctor's office? But it's really important because it changes, I mean, your mindset, I want to talk about the strengths of my child, not the weaknesses of my child, but you really need to share that. Gina, do you have something to offer?
I just want to let parents know that when your child leaves the public school system, we do an exit meeting, and do a summary of
Yeah.
performance. And so you should be able to request a paper copy of all those documents that you want, and we provide like electronic copies
Yeah.
through the software. And I tell every parent that I meet with when we do those, lock that up, treat that like your tax records, put it in a firebox, because you don't know 10 years from now what you might need. And if it's past that 10-year point, the school system will have it in.
Thank you, Gina, appreciate it. Oh, yes, ma'am. Paula.
So if you have, like Pauline said, it's, well, these waivers are need-based. So like say if one person has a now waiver, but they feel that their child has more needs and they apply for the comp or how does it work?
They actually don't need to apply for the comp if they already have the now. So the services are based on clinically assessed need. And so if our clinicians come out and say, oh, this person needs a higher level of service, then we just move to a comp waiver.
I want to introduce Dr. Thompson, who drove down from Atlanta. He's going to take questions. Yeah, I'm going to pass him the microphone.
Hey, thank you very much for letting us meet you this evening and find out about your exciting programs. Huh?
Yes, hi. I have a question about number 6. My child is over 18, but I do not have power of attorney or guardianship because it is so expensive. Is there a way to get past that, or guardianship is $600?
It's expensive.
Yeah.
It is. A release of information. Oh, sure, sorry. So her question was around number 6, power of attorney or proof of guardianship for your child when your child turns 18. And that is, it is expensive. It can be a real barrier. If you can assist your child with signing a release of information, then we can still work with you on that. So before I take a whole bunch of questions or 2 or 3 questions, I just want to say thank you, Dana, for sharing that. And that was really simple, right? No problem understanding the 57 steps. The good news is it used to be 104 steps, okay? We really did simplify it quite a bit. I'm joking about the number, but it is much simpler than it used to be. And it's extremely complicated, right? So what I typically recommend to families is look online, look at the application, do what you can do, and then call us for help. We're happy to assist. There are times where really talented people like Dana and others are able to get documents that I can't get, that you might not be able to get, because of connections with school systems and doctors' offices and things like that. So if you have problems, just call us for help. So apply. That's a big step. It takes lots of pieces. Sometimes it goes back and forth until we get what we need to determine if your child, brother, family member, you, whatever, to determine if they are pre-eligible. We use the term pre-eligible because we don't make the final decision. That goes to a third party named Alliant, and they do that verification for all the waivers. So once you go through that process and become pre-eligible, like Dana said, you get moved to the planning list. Some people might call it a waiting list, and that's fair for some people. We call it a planning list because some folks will get on that planning list at age 5, age 10, not expecting to need services yet. But they know a time will come when they will, and so it makes sense to get that application in and everything done so that you have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. This is part of one of those plans. So once you're determined pre-eligible, Sandra, if you're in this area, will call and complete what we call a needs assessment. And that just covers activities of daily living, specific behavioral needs and medical needs, and then find out what's going on with the family. So the reason we do that, Representative Petrea mentioned the funding of an additional 100 waivers for this year. So we run this report at the beginning of the month, but at the beginning of this month, we had 7,367 people on the planning list. So you look at that 7,367, and then you look at that 100, and we have to prioritize. And so we don't prioritize, and that's the point of the needs assessment. We don't go, oh, this person's been on the list for 20 years, we'll move them forward. Or this person just came on, they have to wait forever. We do it based on level of need. So the higher your level of unmet need, the sooner you move into waiver services. And that's just how we have to prioritize. So once we've determined that you meet that level to move into services, you're most in need. From there, we do a number of different things that I'll be really brief about. The ladies back here are excellent resources if you're wanting more details, but we complete a nursing assessment, a support intensity scale assessment, which is where you want to share all that information about what you have to do every day to take care of your family member, to detail the amount of time it takes to do all the different things that you do every day. And the reason for that is so that we can know what level of support somebody needs when we move them into services. When I worked on the provider end, if somebody had called and said, hey, can you serve this person? There'd be no way of knowing without understanding what support they needed. So it can take a little bit of time from the time you're determined, well, it can take a long time from the time you're determined pre-eligible until you actually move into waiver services. But from the time that you are determined most in need and are going to move into services, depending on a lot of variables, often Medicaid is the biggest challenge, but if Medicaid's good, it may be 45 days, 60 days. Okay. So it kind of varies a little bit, but during that time, we're completing all these assessments, finding providers, and then move into services. So that's sort of from nothing to starting services. Okay. And thank you very much, Dana. It's so complicated, all of the little steps. So what kind of questions do we have tonight?
Repeat her question. Could you restate her question and answer that for the group?
What was the question again? Sorry.
Going from now and then being attorney for comp.
Oh, right. So if you're in waiver services and you're receiving a now waiver, the primary difference here is the cap, right? So now waivers cap about 40,000 and the comp doesn't have a cap. So for instance, the CRA service is more than 40,000, so you can't have CRA and a now waiver. But if, say you're at home, you have a now waiver, you have employment services, maybe CLS, something people come in the home to help out. And then there's, I don't want to say a tragic event, we'll just say a significant change in what's available for support for this person, and they need CRA service. We don't, you don't have to apply for comp, you just move to comp. So if your level of need changes and you're in now, the question was, do you have to reapply for comp? And the answer is no. Services are based on assessed needs.
Jeff, can you address, the difference in the now comp waiver versus like the EDWP waiver, whereas they have structured family caregivers? Because I hear a lot of people that have that misconception that during Appendix K, we had some family members that got paid, but that was just that one-time thing, that they get that waivers mixed up, and they hear this thing about structured family caregivers, and think that applies to now comp. Can you address that?
So the question was about paid caregivers and differences in different waivers. And I really can't say a whole lot more than you did. So in some of the programs, some of the other waiver programs, a family member can get a stipend. Is that the right language? A stipend to take care of their loved one. For now in comp, we don't have that availability. Other states do, but we don't. We don't have that in our waiver. And there was some flexibility with Appendix K that that has gone away.
This is Lynette, and I just want to make a comment on that, because what we do the elderly waiver program that does allow structured family care, and we are getting referrals to our agents, and we do case management from folks who are on the now and comp waiver, wanting to transfer over to the elderly disabled waiver program. And please spread the word, that doesn't work, because those folks who are on the now and comp, even if they say, I'll stop that waiver and give it back to the state, you will not get approval under the elderly waiver. The same group alliance that he's talking about reviews all the waivers, and we got a denial today, and, I wish we had realized that in time to have told that family, do not give up your waiver.
I assume everyone was able to hear that, but there is a challenge for some folks who currently have SOURCE or CCSP, where when their situation is reviewed and it's determined that they're, I don't like this language, but the primary diagnosis is intellectual disability, then we have moved folks. This makes it sound simpler than it is. People have lost their waiver with EDWP, and because of their level of need, we've moved them into either an hour or a comp waiver. One doesn't necessarily assure the other, but there are really specific criteria for each separate one. Yes?
So if you are on this waiting list for an outcome waiver, and as needs and disabilities worsen with age and time, how do you know that they are now needing that?
Thank you.
How do we make that?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking, because I should have included that. When you do something every day and then you share, lots of stuff stays here that doesn't come out here. So thank you for asking that. And the question was, as needs change, how do we know? Well, the truth is, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, sometimes we didn't. Sometimes we didn't know, and that was a real problem. So we changed, when I talked about shortening the process, a piece of that was really changing the structure of how we do things, changing the entire system. And so once somebody's determined pre-eligible and we do that first needs assessment, what we recommend, I hope everyone recommends this, is if there's a significant change, please contact the navigator. The navigator is in the field office and does those assessments. But if for some reason, and this is what we found when we went through these the first time, and I understand completely, if you happen to forget because you're caught up in daily life, right, and you don't think, oh, well, maybe DBHDD can help now, and you don't call, well, we redo those needs assessments at least annually. But anytime in between that there's a significant change, please call us so that we can update that needs assessment. You know, what we found when we switched to this system was people we hadn't had direct communication, we may have mailed letters, but people we hadn't spoken with for say 4 or 5 years, when we did these needs assessments, they immediately rose to the top of the list. We moved them into waiver services. Me, if I've been on a list for 10 years and nobody's helped me or even talked to me in 5 years, why would I think to call them, right? And there's that whole, what is it, the frog in the boiling pot of water, it starts out cool, it gets hotter and hotter. I think, Tyler, you talked about folks don't really realize they need respite until they get respite. And so that's exactly what we find too. Things just incrementally increase.
Any more questions?
Thank you very much for letting me crash the party.
She oversees, she's all over both of us, over the whole region. So when it gets critical and stressful and crisis, she's your point of contact. And you can always contact any of us at any point. If you don't remember names, Julie will have these. But if you don't remember, just call the front office, call that first number, and just say this is going on, and they'll direct you to the right person.
I'm going to repeat it for our viewers on Facebook Live. Dana Christian is the first point of contact for DBHDD. And if you go into the QR code, I think it says presenters, and this will also be posted online about who's presenting. So it would be Dana, who spoke tonight, then Carol Love is the next level, and then Ramona. Hey, Ramona is in the office as well. So my thing is, you hear this, I know it's overwhelming. Parent mentors are, Christina's overwhelmed. She's our new parent mentor and mentor. Have you ever heard of this before? Okay, we have this a lot, which is why we're doing this now, to help people hear this before they leave school so we can help guide you through the process and help you. That's our goal now in public schools. We really want y'all to be aware of these supports, and, you know, they are, you know, payer of last resort, and, you know, they're, you know, most in need. And if you're still in school, your child has a place to go during the day, so you're not as most in need sometimes as that a kid who's exited out of school. So you hear about it tonight, and I push it all the time. I want you to apply for family support. I want you to apply for the NOW comp. And I hear all the time, raise your hand, Joe. I'm not ready to apply. We haven't gotten that yet. I have talked to y'all about this now, what, 7 years? But, you know, I find as parents make through that journey, they get more ready as their child moves in the middle and high school, and they're ready to start thinking about life after high school. And this is such an important tool to support those lives after high school. So if you're here tonight, you're not ready to apply, you just need more information, and the applications are not overwhelming, but they are, you know, different applications, and you have to fill them out. One thing you can do, you can always go to your school team. Gina, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. Do you help with NOW comp waivers? Okay. Okay. Well, in Chatham, we do a lot of workshops, and I come up with a lot of clever names for them about, you know, since we're being recorded, I was going to call it the waiver workshop tonight, but put beverages with it to bring parents in. I want you to help. I want to help you apply. We do that in Chatham County Public Schools, and we offer that to anybody who gets the information. You don't have to be a Chatham County parent. You can be a parent of a 50-year-old person. You can be a parent in another community. We want to help you with that. So we do that through Georgia Parent Mentor Partnership workshops. And in our community, you get information through the parent mentor, through Peach Jar. And then what I like to do is partner with our community agencies. Anytime I do something, Pauline knows about it. She gets my information and she shares out. I share with Lowcountry Down Syndrome. Also share with Matthew Reardon, Center for Autism, and try to hit those individuals because, you know, we're all part of the same community. So we need to make sure we share all the resources around our community. And then, of course, we're lucky because DBHDD, our friends Dana, you know, Region 5, their office is here in Savannah. So we have ways to help you. So our next step is we want to help you to apply. So you're going to see if you signed in on the sign-in roster tonight and left me your email, I'm going to put you on my list, and I'm going to share with you when I'm going to be helping families complete these applications as a parent mentor. And then, of course, you can always go online. If you go into our QR codes, you're going to see the applications there. I got a cheat sheet for applications on one of the QR codes, but we're going to help you complete the waiver, not only for now comp waiver, but also for family support. And I'm an equal opportunity spender of all family support money. So I like spending Pauline's money at B&B. I like spending Gateway's money. I like spending Easter Seal's money. If I can spend it, I spend it around. So I think we're going to try to host something here at Employability on 22nd of September. The time is going to be worked out. I'm easy. I can come daytime or nighttime. My kids are in college and above now. And then the Lowcountry Down Syndrome Society is going to host with their t-shirt pickup on the 28th of September, and that will be posted. Our first preference, of course, is to do it online. Go and back and you saw that list of what you needed to have. I would encourage y'all to go ahead and get that. Gina has talked about it. It is like liquid gold at that point. Get a hold of that. Pauline. Right.
Yes, I understand you gave birth to your child, but when they 18, they are their own adults. So when I call you and say you have guardianship or you have power of attorney, you say, well, I'm their mama. I know you're their mama. But you are not their legal guardian unless a judge has appointed you their legal guardian. But you can use power of attorney, and I suggest contacting Bill Broker at Georgia Legal Aid, and they'll be happy to help with that. But that's something you need to address. Guardianship does cost you some money, and the Georgia Advocacy Office does not promote necessarily guardianship, but more so our attorney, because it's the least restrictive way of getting your business done. But there are copies of the
healthcare directive and the power of attorney. Yeah, and those are free, actually. You need a notary, and it's the least restrictive option, if and of course, DBHDD has their own releases as the family support agencies. And in the high school years, a transfer of rights happens at age 18 for all students. But for our kids with disabilities, it also transfers the rights of the special education process to them. So we do talk to families, parent mentors and the special education teams will talk to you about what you can do to help the legal tools out there that you can put in place to help your young adult. And the least restrictive is the power of attorney, the healthcare directive. There's also supportive decision-making, and guardianship is the most restrictive. And we're not here to tell you which one to get. We'll just advise you that this will come up. And it always comes up with state agencies and healthcare for sure.
What's his name?
Bill Broker, Georgia Legal Services. And during the year, we do a presentation with him. He's great. He shares and talks about how families can reach out to him to get those tools in place. And for kinship projects for grandparents or other family members raising children. So, I'm sorry. Well, anyway, for closing remarks, I'm going to turn it over to John for a second, but as a parent mentor, I rely on your feedback. Those blue papers on your table is my parent survey. I'm very interested in offering workshops in our community on topics of interest to y'all. All of the parent mentor workshops are free, and open to anybody. But I do appreciate it as a representative from the parent mentor program at Savannah and Chatham County Public Schools.
Thank you. Do we have any last questions at all? Anybody? It's a lot of information, but just remember, if you go to our YouTube page and our Facebook page, this is all there, so you'll be able to go back and review this. You can kind of skip forward if you're looking for some specific information that you need. And there's people in the chats that put in the names that were announced as well. Yes, it will be posted. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you all for coming. Appreciate y'all being here. A lot of great information that is so helpful.
John, there's a bunch of helmet on like Tic Tacs and hand sanitizers, and they got cards and different things over there. So families and individuals are welcome to take them.
So on your way out, please get some Tic Tacs and hand sanitizer. And if you need Tyler, please contact him. Thank you so much.